Hello, this is the Kubernetes SIG cluster lifecycle meeting for cluster API provider AWS of the 26th July 2021, 1700 UTC. Please be aware we're abiding by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which broadly speaking is be excellent to each other. You could use the raise hand feature if you've got a point to make, and we'll get started. So just two PSAs. We've got the version 0.6.7 was bug release. We got fixed last week, I believe. It's got a bug fix for if you've seen any issues around duplicate VPCs being created, then this should sort you out in future. Kind of interesting issue that we found. And because a couple of people have asked, version 0.7. So our target is to try and be done to coincide with Kubernetes 122. So for those who aren't aware, Cluster API v1 Alpha 3 may be able to deploy a Kubernetes 122 cluster, but it can't run on Kubernetes 1.22 because there is a bunch of API removals, mostly the order v1, beta 1, admission review, CRDs, mutating webhooks are being deleted in 122, and the version of controller runtime that's used by Cluster API and Cluster API AWS in v1 Alpha 3 is too old. So we will only support management clusters on Kubernetes 1.22 with v1 Alpha 4. And that will probably affect like EKS as well. So once the EKS wants to 122, if you want to install Kappa on top of EKS, it will need to be v1 Alpha 4. So we'll look at the board in a minute. So any comments on that? We can move on to the bits. Okay, so action items on last week's with Richard to look at tolerations, node affinity. I think we've come to a conclusion on that we're going to prefer to schedule on control plane where one exists. It's not a hard guarantee, unfortunately, but that's the best compromise we can make, given that EKS doesn't actually have any control plane nodes. Second one, bottle rocket, what's the process for bootstrap emulation KCP? Richard, do you want to speak to that one?
Yeah, just a brief one. So there are specific AMIs that we can query for using SSM, like we do for just the normal AMIs and also the GPU accelerated ones. Only difference is if we want to provide any additional configuration, we can't use KCP because it uses a different format. It still uses user data, but it's in TOML format slightly. So we'd have to take that into consideration. I think this was in relation, the original query was in relation to also supporting Flatcar, wasn't it? And whether it's worth doing now or if there's going to be other formats supported for different underlying operating systems.
Yeah, that's right. So it's not Kubadian control plane necessarily, it's Kubadian config. It's the bootstrap provider that's the main issue. KCP, we can always wrap it, but KCP is a bit tightly coupled to KBK as well. I think there is someone who's volunteered to pick up the effort for ignition in the CAPI repo. So I'm not sure where that's going, but obviously adding, like, where do we go? Do we start adding another one for that? And the Talos spoke also have a completely separate control plane provider, and CAPI, their own version of the bootstrap provider. Yeah, so I don't know, but I think maybe I think that's good knowledge, and we can figure out what to do next on that.
Nadir, can you
yes.
scroll down your screen?
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah.
I've got to let me close the other window. I had it also open on another monitor. So thank you. Yeah. Any comments on that? Okay. Sadaf, you've got next one.
Yes, this is I just saw that Shivani opened a PR for the issue about AWS Mission Finalizer. Is there anything else you are gonna add, Shivani, to that PR? What is missing there?
Yeah, actually, this PR was mainly regarding for the AWS machine only. But like when we create any AWS cluster using like invalid credential, then it's like AWS machine object and AWS cluster object both stuck at one point. So for that, like I discussed with Nadir and Joel, that so they suggested that we need to move the finalizer. So for AWS machine, it was pretty straightforward, but for AWS cluster, there is a bit of refactoring needed. So I tested it like by moving it to the place where it should be. It is working fine, but I need to do some refactoring. So that's why I created a work in progress PR for that.
Okay, so that PR will also include the AWS cluster finalizer fix.
Yeah, I need to add for that also. We can do it in separate PR also, but I mean the work was more or less similar, so that's why I created one only, and we'll add for AWS cluster here.
Yeah, we can do it in separate PRs, in my opinion.
Okay, then yeah, then I can like create a separate one.
Okay, this looks good as it is now. And yeah, the next one is about when I made the releases, I made the mistake of adding images as in the staging repo instead of the actual repo. So I published them like this. Nadir did the right thing in the 0.6.7 release. I was wondering if we should go back and fix the images in the previous already released versions.
Yeah, ideally, we probably should. I had quite a lot of issues doing the release last week. Like a load of stuff didn't work. Shivani I've got a recording of it. Took quite a while to fix a lot of things, and no one's noticed. But if you do look at the cluster AWS ADM, it is marked as dirty because I had to fiddle around with the tree. So it's not an absolute clean release. Yeah, so the Makefile is a bit broken. So we need to. Vince has got some notes as well. Oh, did I open it in the wrong issue? Oh, I opened it in the wrong repo. I meant to open it in the cluster API AWS repo, not. I'll ask Vince to transfer it. Yeah, so I opened it in the wrong repo, but there's a bunch of Makefile issues with the release. So I will close the one that's in the Cappy repo and move it over. I don't know, should we take seriously the idea of stop using the Makefile and replace it with something that's written in Go, like Makefile? Because I have a feeling I might be one of the few people who writes M4 enough to, and I hate it so much. So should we get, I think the complexity of it is almost worse than Bazel now. And it's got to the stage we should just rewrite it. Any thoughts? I see Richard nodding and 2 thumbs up. Should we make this a priority then? And if not for 070, like at least shortly after, I think it will fix a lot of things.
For 07x plus 12.
All right, cool. And any other comments, or Richard, do you want to chat about the next one?
Yeah, sorry, it's I think was it in the last meeting we discussed about the graceful node shutdown when for AWS machine pool. But in 121, the actual graceful kubelet is aware of the host shutdown. But it was really just a comment that we should probably still handle it ourselves and fall back on this when this, because they basically do say in here, don't they, that you should handle it yourself as well. But it's more just to get people's thoughts. If they want to comment on the issue, I'll put the issue in the notes as well. Let me find that.
So what's the use case here is, so you scale down at ASG and right now it just deletes, it just terminates the instance straight away, does it?
Even if it's after a period, yeah, it doesn't do any eviction. So you can end up with things being killed. This was this was an observation by, I'm not sure if Dane's on the call. No, he's not. So Dane was mentioning that this is why they don't use or they don't like to use machine pools.
Yeah, I think somebody was going to talk to the Azure. I can't remember what the last status is with the Azure folk, because Azure is much more reliant on on machine pool than AWS is, because they've got resource restrictions around starting individual VMs. So with Azure, you have to use machine pools, and I think they were talking about making some API changes where you would have like a virtual machine resource, not a virtual machine resource that represents a member of the machine pools, and then you'd have a controller that would then be able to do the drain from that.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'd handle that at the CAPI level rather than individual provider level.
Interesting. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, because we can handle it fairly easy, in Kappa. But yeah, if they can do it upstream, that would be even better.
What would it look like to handle it in Kappa?
So we'd have to have a lifecycle hook on essentially on the ASG behind it, so that we get a notification via event bridge of the termination. So we'd have to subscribe to that and essentially call the eviction API for that node. And then you can respond to that lifecycle hook saying continue. So I think it would be something like that if we used to do it ourselves.
There is already event bridge code in Kappa, I think.
Yeah.
So I haven't used it much, but that might be
Perfect.
Yeah, and I think the next level of that was going to be set up the event bridge and then hand it off to the AWS node termination handler. So there is this one.
Okay.
Right, so in the existing project, so if we can set up the queue that the node termination handler uses, and then let the node termination, so you deploy that within cluster, so it'd be on a workload cluster, and then it itself will be able to do all the stuff. So I think that rather than reinvent the wheel, that the simplest solution might be to wire up the AWS node termination handler.
Yeah, cool. I'll add that to the issue, so it's on it.
Cool. Any other comments, questions? No. Next one, node affinity issue status. Sarah.
Yeah, I see that Richard already pinged on the issue, but then after assigning to someone, I don't see much activity. I just wanted to see, I mean, Vespian has never like replied on the issue. Just wanted to see if he is working on it or not.
Richard.
Yeah, I think it's actually on the PR. I need to check. I think he's updated it based on the comments. Let me just check. So it's PR 2377. So yeah, 6 days ago, he's made some changes. So it's kind of just failing the tests, but I'll get back to him.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I didn't check the PR. I was checking the issue. Yeah, cool, thanks.
Hopefully, you just need to rebase it on main, and it should be fine.
Cool. Yeah.
It's probably just all the E2E and test updates that need to be. Should be fine otherwise. Cool. Let's. Any other comments, questions, topics? Otherwise, we'll just go quick rundown of the milestone. All right, we'll go down. Yep, so I'll just go run through these. AWS resource reference, I've got that. I've got most of that changed. So I've got rid of AWS resource reference in its entirety. So there's specific types for each version and only includes the fields that we actually use. And we can add filters and whatever back later, but you know, if you're referencing security group, then it's a security group reference or subnet reference, has specific implementations there. Launch template support. I think we might need to punt this given Michael's not around, and so I'll take that off release blocking. And I might remove the lifecycle. I thought, I did lifecycle cancel, but it didn't take. There we go. Right. Next one, new client builder instead of new fake. I don't even understand that.
I'll take a look at it. I was on vacation. I didn't take a look at my open PRs. I am doing that right now.
Okay, cool. Enhanced AMI lookup logic for EKS. So I'm wondering whether or not like this looks more. I don't think this is something we're going to fix in a couple of weeks. So I think we should punt that to 07x.
I think we should wait for class for that.
Yeah, so I'll take off release blocking. After clean up AWS templates, I'm doing that right now. So I'm doing the resource reference and templates together since they're both like a bunch of API changes. Do that all in one go. AWS machine cannot be removed if Shivani, you're working on that. So let's
yeah, so for this AWS machine, so it's done. I will separate out the PR.
Yeah, so I'll just do the lifecycle active. So you've got Kubernetes 6 membership now, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, so whenever you work on a PR, just put the lifecycle active, and then that marks it as like someone is working on it. Okay. So that's how we keep track. So someone else does go, oh, that's something I can do, and starts work on it, which has happened in the past.
I commented this, but nothing. Like now it's showing a Kate CI robot added a tag, but when I did, it was not showing. That's why I removed the comment.
Oh, okay. Oh well.
But yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, but it's happened to me in the past where like two people have done the same work, and yeah, it gets frustrating. Not required. Describe NAT gateways when consuming AWS. Did I mark this as myself? No. It's not release blocking anyway, so I will just move that. We can look at that again. Not sure what the issue is there. Naming and typo changes.
This is a cleanup that I wanna go over, that to check if we covered all the things we found while upgrading to V1 Alpha 4.
Okay. All right. And graduate EKS out experimental. How's that going, Richard?
After a false start, nearly there. I moved the API groups initially of the bootstrap and the control plane, which was a mistake. So I had to basically restart from scratch. But yeah, nearly there.
Actually, I've got a question on that. So how have you found moving API groups has been frustrating, right? Like in general. Like
yeah. So I went round and round in circles about how I was going to do that. So it's still in the same API group. So it's still in the the bootstrap or the control plane, and the API types are still in the same folders as they originally were. I did start to move them across into the API folder, but then it gets a bit difficult about how you register register them as a schema. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's just yeah, so someone was asking me for another provider, like they want to add some new feature set, and it was like, oh, should we use a different API group? And it's like, only if you never rename it ever again.
Yeah. And I'm gonna have a problem. I haven't got to this yet, is where I delete the AWS managed cluster. I'm sure that's going to break a whole bunch of tests, but I haven't done that yet. I don't know if anyone's ever removed a resource kind, have they?
No. Yeah.
I've just left it where it is for the time being, ignoring it until I've got nothing else to do. Well, until I've done all the other stuff. But yeah, I'll get that sorted.
How are people going to migrate from AWS managed cluster to control plane?
Well, luckily, we removed all references from AWS managed control plane a few releases ago. AWS managed cluster. We removed most of the references from that, including in the templates. So probably for the last 2 releases or 3 releases, there's been no reference to AWS managed cluster in any of the documentation or the templates. So I'm hoping it won't be a problem. If not, we're going to have to I could write a conversion function, maybe. I don't know if that's allowed. Convert from AWS managed template. No, that won't work.
No, you have to have this. You have to have some storage version.
Yeah.
So the only way you could do it would be like what's happening with Tree Cloud Provider, with like CSI migration, where you have both resource versions. You have both resources available, and then the controller reconciles what's happening today, reconciles the flex volumes, converting them into CSI PVs, and then a future Kubernetes release will delete the flex volume.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I knew it'd be painful.
But like, given that it's always been experimental, like what's the relative trade-off? I think that's a judgment call.
Yeah.
So
And
if you want to
it's-
write the migration controller, you have to keep that resource hanging around,
Right.
at
Yeah, okay.
least in CRD form, an API, and have a controller that reconciles it by immediately converting it into another resource. Or you make the decision that it has been experimental and we're actually just dropping it.
To be honest, I would favor it's experimental and we're dropping it and it's not being documented for X number of releases. Because the weird one is we wouldn't actually convert it. We'd have to migrate the CAPI cluster because it's actually in the CAPI cluster where the reference changes in the cluster ref or whatever, cluster infrastructure ref or whatever the field is called. Yeah. So I'm guessing we couldn't do it with that, can we?
You could follow the owner references of AWS managed cluster because it should have the cluster resource as the owner reference, and then you'll be able to go backwards. So you could do it that way. But
yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, but it's up to you. I'll leave it to you to make that call.
Okay, I'll try that though. That's a good idea. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, I think that's all we got. Is there any other comments? Anyone want to introduce themselves, say hi, or? No?
Yep.
Oh, hi.
So I am Madhur. I recently started contribution on CAPI, so I've raised a PR and it got merged. And now I'm looking for some new stuff. Like I have a very basic understanding of this. If you could help me, like where should I start and move ahead? I'm looking for new work there.
Cool. If we've done a pass on the help wanted, so I would look on. I think everything that's release blocking has an individual attached now, so there probably isn't much in the 070 milestone. I would take a look at the 07X milestone, and I think this has been assigned to someone. But I would have a look at this. There's a couple that are marked with help wanted. And see what takes your interest, I would say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Sure, and reach out. So Richard, and Sadef. At the moment, we're in. We're working to European time zones. So, but Sadef is normally West Coast based. So at least for this week, and then we've got some folk in the US after next week, and Shivani's in India. Scott, I think, is in the US. But yeah,
Israel, not the US.
Oh, okay. Cool. So there you go. So right. So we're roughly in the Europe, Asia time zones, most of us. So yeah, reach out on the Slack. So are you in the Kubernetes Slack?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah. So yeah, just reach out in Cluster API AWS and you can have a chat.
Sure. Thank you.
Cool. Anything else? Or we'll call it. Going once, going twice, 3 times. All right. See you in 2 weeks, folks.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye on.
Bye.